Welcome to the Photography Opinion Podcast. We discuss all things photo, video, and camera related. I'm Ben Lucas.
And I'm Stuart Marlantis.
And this is Photo Op.
Welcome to Photo Op and our second to last episode of 2020. In this episode, we're going to talk about something that we've gotten a lot of questions and a lot of input about remote shooting. We've seen a lot of this online, and we've heard a little bit about it, and we've done a little bit of it. So we're going to talk about remote shooting. But first, we have a question from a listener, Joshua. He says, "Hey guys, I was wondering if you have much experience with the Canon 70-200 lineup." He goes on to ask a few different questions about what we would use it for, what the sweet spot is, should he buy the 4 instead of the 2.8, and if it's good for his uses in portraiture and landscapes. So thank you, first of all, Joshua, for listening and for sending in the question. And take it away, Ben. What do you think about the 70-200 lineup from Canon?
Yeah, so it sounds like from his question, he does not yet have a 70-200, and he needs something for his Canon-bodied camera.
Looking to buy.
We're gonna start there. So just because it's Canon body doesn't mean it has to be Canon branded. So I personally do not own a Canon 70-200. The reason is because they are expensive. So I actually own a Sigma 70-200. Here is the upside. It is about half the price. The image quality is pretty good, roughly the same. It's definitely taken some beatings, and maybe it's a little bit softer now than it was when I first bought it. So that's something to keep in mind. But the downside is that it is a heavy honkin' beast. It is literally about twice the physical weight. So if the strain of holding that for long periods of time, especially when I do it for like a 14-hour wedding, that gets heavy. So what I would say is, if you are a freelancer, you have heard of the triangle, cheap, fast, and high quality. Choose two. You can't have all three, right? So what I would say is that my advice for your lens, we're going to change up the trinity here, but choose two, and that's kind of my advice for you. So when you're looking at quality, pretty much all these lenses have good enough quality until you have a $100,000 client and you start getting real nitpicky. You know, the quality for all these lenses is going to absolutely surpass your needs. So really what we're looking at is physical size and weight, because that can be a factor. Price and low light performance. So if the two things that you need are low light performance and good price, then I would actually go with something like the Sigma 70-200. Yes, you are sacrificing that it is a heavy beast, but you get what you need at a good price. So that was what I went with. If you have a little more cash and weight is less important to you, I would absolutely go with the Canon 2.8 over the 4. Even if you don't shoot it at 2.8, every lens is a little bit sharper when it stops down about a stop or two. So by getting a 2.8 lens and stopping down to 4, you're going to have much cleaner and sharper images than you are getting a 4 lens that is completely stopped open. That said, the 2 is again much heavier. So if you need a cheaper lens and a lighter lens, that Canon f4, it is small, it is light, it gets the job done. If you shoot a lot of weddings and you're in dark chapels, f4 ain't gonna cut it. So, you know, it really all depends. For general portraiture, you know, any of these are going to be good enough. And also, I don't even shoot with the 70-200 that much for portraiture. I usually use my 85 because I don't have enough space or room, generally speaking, to back up to use a 200mm lens. And plus, then I can shoot at like 1.8. So
Yep.
That's kind of, I think, everything I would consider. I personally don't use that lens lineup because of what we just talked about. I hope that answered your question. Stuart, anything to add?
I don't think so. Yeah, he does mention that he has a 24-70 already, and that he would be using this portraiture to landscapes. If it really leans portraiture, consider ignoring the 7200 and going for an 85. That is your portrait lens, pretty much.
The 7200 is absolutely my workhorse when I do like event photography and weddings.
Yeah, for sure.
I have that on my camera, 8 out of 10 hours. So it's definitely worth having. But yeah, it really just depends on like how much you're willing to spend and what's the other thing that's most important to you.
Yeah. He also asks if the first version, because there are a couple versions of the IS-28, if that is still good for professional use. It was good for professional use when it first came out. It is still good for professional use now. If you get it for some screaming deal, like if somebody recently upgraded to another version and you can get that for a song, yeah, go for it. I mean, then you've got a Canon 2.8. It's just the first version.
That's how I buy camera gear. So if you can find an original Canon 5D and all you're doing is portraiture, awesome.
Cool.
You just got a pro level camera for just a couple $100 versus thousands of dollars. So congratulations. So I actually tend to buy the camera that is the second to next generation. So not the one that just came out, the one that has a huge price drop because something else just replaced it.
Exactly.
So it is still good. Most of the time it is using a lot of the same hardware or sensor or firmware or whatever. So yeah, you're going to get a good bang for your buck. You're going to get something that has lasted a long time. I think my first Canon 5D Mark III is 10 years old, and my second one is I think 4 or 5 years old, and then I just bought a 5DS, which I actually used when I went to Iceland. How long ago was that? 6 years? 7 years? Something like that?
Sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah.
6, 7 years.
So I used the 5DS back then, and I was happy with it then. It was just expensive and very limited use, and I didn't want to. But it just dropped on sale because it's getting replaced or discontinued or whatever. I'm like, sweet, I just snagged it for a killer deal, and now I have a massive, huge megapixel monster at my disposal. So, yeah, if price is important to you, older first version IS, it's fine. It's good. It'll get the job done.
For sure. Thanks, Joshua, for your question, and thank you for listening as well.
All right, so today's episode, we are talking remote shooting.
This is a big one right now with
COVID
going on. Remote shooting is a big topic.
So
yeah, we're going to talk about it today.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it today. I'll kind of start by explaining what this is because I've heard this a lot. And at first, I didn't even quite understand the subject. That is when, Stuart, you and I are going to have a photo shoot, except you're at your house and I'm at my house. So you're going to be the model. I'm going to be the photographer. Let's do this photo shoot. And it took me a while to kind of wrap my brain around, like, I don't understand how does this work? Genuinely, I am curious. And so we actually, I put this out there, and not only have I gotten questions about it, but I even put this out into a couple of photographer groups to see what all of you other photographers think about it.
Yes.
And definitely some mixed responses. So one of the things that I am personally kind of struggling with trying to understand is what is the difference between remote shooting and taking a selfie with an art director? That's kind of seems
very similar. That's the answer. What's the difference between remote shooting and screenshotting a Skype call?
So that's kind of what we're talking about today. We're not.
Yep.
I actually found a really good article that we're not going to bother going into because we would be taking credit. But there will be a link down in the description. There's another photographer that explains all of the apps that he uses so that when you're using your phone, you can take. You can be doing FaceTime or Skype or whatever it is, but you can remote shutter the camera using the high original resolution of your camera. So you're not just screenshotting, you're actually doing the 15 megapixel picture or whatever it is remotely. And there's free apps, but there's one for Android and one for iPhone, and he details the process of that. So we're just going to link that. So if you want the technicals how-to of remote shooting, we're kind of gonna get into that, but if you just want quick and easy, he has a great tutorial that we're just gonna give them props for. But yeah, you have a lot. I have not even tried remote shooting yet, and besides kind of trying to understand what it is and why you would do it, and we can get back to some of the responses that we gathered online as well. I know you have some experience with it.
I do have some experience with remote shooting. I've done some remote shooting of a few different varieties. I do tend to trend toward video in a lot of my professional work, so a lot of my remote shooting is video-centric. That being said, I have done both video and stills, and really the process is essentially the same for both of them. It's just how long you're recording, whether it's instantaneous or drawn out a little bit more. So yes, I've done a bit of it, especially recently. So
yeah, kind of walk us through. Let's break it up into a couple different stages of what are the pre-game, so to speak, things that are different from a normal photo shoot. What are the actual shoot things that are different? And then what's kind of that workflow look like, and your pros, cons, and what your experience has been with remote shooting, and then we'll go to the audience, so to speak.
Sure. So the pregame is very similar to your in-person shooting. I would say it's essentially identical, other than the fact that you're saying with you're talking with your client, and you're like, do we really have to do this now? Could we please make it possible to do this in person? And then the answer eventually becomes no, through a variety of reasons, and you have to shoot remotely, and so you're eventually trapped into a corner. So that's the pregame, is being trapped into a corner.
Well,
in addition,
there's one more thing that I think kind of goes into it.
Yeah.
So as a photographer, what I bring to the table, besides just my skill and experience, is I'm bringing the high quality camera. I'm bringing the lighting. Sure. I am going to have, a backdrop or a location if I have a studio.
Yeah.
Versus as a client, I am expecting the photographer to handle all those things because I don't know any of those things. But now the client has to do the camera and the lights and the set. So how do you kind of walk them through that?
100%. I was being a little bit flippant there. You do. It is very tricky. So the obvious big problem with not being there is you don't get the whole lay of the landscape, so to speak. You don't get ultimate creative control over everything in their environment. I mean, you try to, but you don't. Non-photographers have a different lens on the world, so to speak, than you do. So it is difficult to articulate a lot of how your needs are very specific, but in a way that is understandable to non-photographer clients. So how that works for me is generally like what are our constraints? Like are they willing to travel to go somewhere? Are they willing to bring equipment? Like how important is the shoot to them? What are we looking for? What do we need? Is it just simple headshots? Is it a video project where we're talking about something? Does the environment matter? Like that's another thing, is you might have to just if you don't have the control that you need and the client is unable to give it, then you might have to just accept whatever they have available, and the environment needs to not matter to your end product. So there are a lot of environmental issues that we have to go over. One of the biggest ones, of course, for video or photos is lighting. A lot of people are in really poorly lit environments for any good photographic or videographic work, and that is one that
most non-photographers do not
don't care
about lighting. So I will even say I just moved, and the reason why that you're looking at a blank void is because it ain't ready yet. But in my last place, there in the living room, there was like one incandescent light bulb, and whenever I tried to pull out my camera would be at like f2.8, and it would be like dragging the shutter, and I'd be at ISO like 10,000 to get a proper exposure. It was a black hole. I do not understand how dark it was in there, even though to my eye it looked fine.
Yep.
I could read, I could hang out, we could sit on the couch together and eat pizza. Remember that?
Yeah.
Remember those
Remember
days?
socializing? person?
I digress. But the actual technical limitations of the lighting in there were so incredibly severe. But to you, you're like, okay, there's light, it's fine.
Yeah.
So there are things like that non-photographers just don't think about.
So I usually ask people like what light fixtures are in the space
or
windows. That's what gets a better response is like, do you have like one that I did recently? He had a window in that room, but he also had lights in the room. So that was my initial question is, do you have a window in the room? Do you have lights? And he said, yeah, I have these two lamps. I've got this lamp behind me, or actually it's a standing light. It doesn't really matter. I have this window. And I was like, great. Well, can we shoot with you facing the window? Is that going to be too bright on your face to do this? It was a video shoot to do this video shoot. And he said, no, that's perfect. I don't mind that at all. I like looking out the window there. So in that case, it was really nice that he had a window available. I also had him position the lamps so that they weren't as harsh on his face. And that's a thing that, again, it depends on the space. It depends on how able the client is to move it. Yeah, what color are the walls?
Without getting like a bad color spill.
Exactly. So that's why I had him move some stuff is I didn't want like the lights were very harsh and direct on him. I wanted them bouncing off of the light off of the walls more because the walls were just a neutral white color. So that worked out really well. The color temperature of the lights is also something that you have to take into consideration because that might be a different color temperature than what you're getting from the window. And that creates a whole host of issues.
Absolutely.
So
I mean,
it depends.
For people that are watching this on YouTube, Stuart and I right now have different color temperatures on our video.
Yep.
Frankly, it annoys me a little bit. I have a new light that is going to solve that problem. It is on order.
Yeah, we're
waiting.
Make it
we're waiting. But no, that is the thing because if it's too warm, then it looks kind of dingy. If it's too orange, you look like some monster. If it's too blue, then you look like you've been an extra on The Sopranos that have been hanging on a meat hook a little too long.
Exactly.
I tell people on a scale of Smurf to Oompa Loompa, I want you to look human.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, so that's a tricky one too, and a lot of people don't. I will say, like with LEDs proliferating, like good quality LEDs, more people
LEDs
know
are
about
daylight balanced. Yeah, more
people know about it. It's on a lot of the packaging now. You just go into a hardware store and you look at light bulbs. You can see different color temperatures just big and on the box. And although not everybody pays close attention to that, I was pleasantly surprised. More people are understanding it than before. So that's
when I bought shop lights for the studio, they weren't even labeled white and soft white. They were labeled 5,000 Kelvin, 6,000 Kelvin.
Yep, exactly. So that's getting better, thankfully, with that. So lighting is by far the biggest one for me. In this case, in this case, the lighting was especially an issue because that was like the whole thing. He had some of his own equipment that I was able to utilize, remotely. I didn't have to send him too much. That being said, there are other clients where you have to send equipment to them because they just don't have what's necessary. Like it's so bad that you can't even just make it work. You have to send them something, and that's actually something that really in my professional life I'm working with a team on to try to figure out how do we shoot remotely.
What is the best way to set up this care package?
Exactly. How do we build a care package that an average person off the street could open up the box and set it up close enough that it could be taken over remotely by somebody more knowledgeable and utilized appropriately. So this is something that I'm thinking a lot about now, and it is an extremely difficult problem, and ultimately it's still very limiting. So that's the other thing that you need to think of is if you need to do a remote shoot and it has very specific equipment concerns, and you want to send them stuff, there's all the logistical issues of sending things to them that making sure they don't break and everything works out and gets there okay, but also their ability to set it up. Like people are not going to understand all the different batteries, all of the different cables, where to place things.
I remember, I was watching John Oliver, and he even mentions on one of his episodes, he gives a shout out to his team behind him, how he's like, they sent me all this stuff. I don't know what any of it does. I just know if the red light's on, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And I'm working with this very poor tech person who's just I'm so sorry for you that you have to deal with my idiocy because I don't know anything. He's like, yeah, the XLR cable. I'm like, you mean the metal thing with the prongs? No.
Exactly. I mean, and he's somebody that stands in front of a camera professionally, and he doesn't know this. So expecting random people to know it is not a ticket to success, unfortunately. So we are trying to figure this out. I wish I had a silver bullet solution for you that I could say, do these things, and people will understand how to set it up. But unfortunately, I don't have a good solution yet other than simplify. Like, you need to... You, as the professional, need to take on potentially more work, or make things a little bit more difficult on yourself to make it easier on the client. Because it's a choice between, does this shoot happen at all, or do I sacrifice some aspect of it that ultimately can be abandoned for the shoot actually happening? So that's what it always is in my experience, is sacrificing and simplifying just so that it can actually happen. So that's a lot of the prep work, is thinking through those things, thinking through what you can get rid of every possible aspect you can, and stick to lighting and a lot of, the really core photographic principles to get that actually happening, and walk the client through it. Don't speak as a photographer. Speak as, like, put that lamp over there, like a foot closer to the wall. Speak in those kind of like interior design kind of ways instead of photographic ways, because people are not going to get it. Not at all.
I think you also hit on something right there about simplifying down. Of that will just also make life easier. So I just shot my very first shoot in the new studio space. Huzzah! It was a Christmas card for somebody, and they were having these space age astronaut looking helmets. And so what I needed a very flat, even light per the kind of art direction that we were going with. But I needed a flat, even light that didn't leave a bunch of glare on their helmet so you can still see their face. Well, trying to do this was turning into a nightmare, and I basically came up with a 6-light setup that was very awkward and convoluted, and we were almost there, and then all of a sudden it hit me. My studio is technically a garage. I opened the garage door. Problem solved. All of the light just was indirect sunlight, bouncing off the concrete outside and the new white floor inside up into their face, and it just left this nice, pleasing light without any of the hard reflections that all of my lights and modifiers were doing. I'm like, oh, right, simple.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
That sometimes.
Look for windows. Look for exterior light. Like, anything you can utilize there is almost certainly going to be simpler and an improvement over whatever they currently had. So yeah, open the garage door.
Sometimes what I actually like doing, like when I'm shooting a wedding and I'm in a hotel room doing like bridal prep, that type of thing, I put them next to the window. I will have them face the window if I want that soft, even front lighting. And then because I don't like the color temperature in the rest of the room, I'll go and turn the lights off. So that could be a counterintuitive thing, and people will be like, oh, you want more light. I'm like, no, I don't want more light. I have enough. I want quality light.
Yep.
And those lights are wrong for the thing I'm trying to do. So yes, another part of that is, yes, you can try and turn on all the lamps, but also try and be selective about it. Turn things off if they are making your life harder.
Exactly. So that's to me, that's a lot of the prep work, is working through those kind of details and thinking through them, because I guarantee you're going to get to the day of, you're going to start the shoot and things are going to go awry. So the more you can simplify and the more you can throw away and it be fine, the easier it's going to be on you and on the client. As far as the actual shoot, I actually haven't had too many issues when we've gotten to that point. Maybe because I've just been really obsessive about setup and talking the client through the process, but I haven't had too many issues day of. Big thing, of course, internet connectivity between you and the client. That is the obvious one. I mean, if that fails, it's done. So you need to reschedule, or you need to hope it comes back quickly. So I would encourage, you can't necessarily make the client be as perfect with their internet connection as possible. But I often ask them, like, if there's anybody else in the household, like if they can refrain from streaming or doing any, downloading games or, doing anything high bandwidth is helpful if they are okay with making that request of anybody else in their household. Another thing is if they can be, like, if they only have a wireless connection, if they can be closer to their router, again, assuming that it fits with the lighting and all that, that works really well. If they can be hardlined in through Ethernet, perfect. Then that's a lot less likely to have any issues. And you, as the person shooting remotely, if you can follow all of those things as well, that's going to just reduce the amount of things that can go wrong. That's pretty much the name of the game for any remote shooting, is reduce the things that can go wrong so that you can get through it at the end of the day.
I'm gonna throw it to one of the audience comments here. So one of the two best comments, and we'll do the second one closer to the end here, was story time. I had a remote shoot with a paid model. This is a professional model that he paid for their time. Her computer crashed 4 times in the first 30 minutes. You have to wait for it to reboot. You have to wait for it to go back online, start your tethering program. I paid for 2 hours of shooting. The model had a Costco 1980 laptop from Craigslist with 4 gigs of RAM. And half of the time, her computer was down and it could not run the tethering program. I was having issues running the camera, saving RAW files, and being connected to the internet at the same time. I'm glad I did it and had fun. Would not do again.
Yep. That you cannot assume that the equipment on the other side is going to be up to the task.
My heart goes out to you, man. I'm sorry that happened to you, Ron, but that's funny.
Yep. Good stuff. Yeah. So yeah, you need to. I was lucky in this particular one that I'm talking about, in that he had a decent setup, and I didn't have internet connectivity issues, and everything went relatively smooth day of. And he had actually thought about this a lot himself, which was, I hope, was also self-directed, but I'm sure it helped that I spoke with him about it ahead of time and walked him through the process and kind of got him in that headspace of thinking about all of the different aspects. So day of is really about, again, what else, if anything goes wrong, what else can you give up and still make the shoot happen? How can you reduce any potential issues? And just being, any of the normal things that you do on a regular in-person shoot, be the professional, be the easy to work with person, and make it as simple for the client and as smooth for the client as it can be. Because it's definitely awkward for you. It is even more awkward for them. So if you can just be super friendly and helpful and understanding, that is ultimately the best way to go. I mean, they are not going to understand this like you are, so you need to be understanding and help them through it.
Yeah, so my initial joke about what's the difference between remote shooting and taking a selfie with art director, I kind of think that's not a joke.
Yeah.
That seems to be kind of the role. And I think if you put yourself kind of more in the mindset of art director versus photographer when you're going into the shoot, art directors have a very different role. It is the photographer's job to be super technical and super proficient and make everything happen. It is the art director's job to be like, something needs to change.
Yep.
What needs to change?
Yep.
And then, like, do I like it? Just yes or no. Do I like it?
Yep.
Yes, I do. No, I don't.
And
I don't. Let's keep shooting. Yes, I do. Cool.
And you have such a literally a limited window on the scene. One of the great things about photography is I think a lot of the flexibility that you can get. I mean, not in all photography, but in a lot of photography, you see the lay of the land, right? You're not only looking through your camera, you're looking through your eyes, seeing everything that's out there, all the different angles and possibilities, all the different lighting. All you're seeing in a remote shoot is what they give you. And
that's true. You
have that one perspective, that one very flat perspective, and that's it. So you don't get your world is, as a photographer in that situation, is so narrow, and that's just incredibly constraining, in my opinion. It's incredibly difficult to work. It's a creative field. It's hard to work creatively when you're limited to one view, literally.
True.
So that's another thing that I have continually struggled with during shoots, like when the shoot actually is happening, is being so limited by that perspective. So that's what the things that I would keep in mind day of. Afterward, you're not going to get the results that you really want. I mean, you always hope that everything turns out perfectly, just like as if you were there in person. But you are going to be disappointed. And the name of the game, as with every other stage of this process, is make the best of it. Do what you can with what you have.
Once. So I'm in a group where is a bunch of people just who post constantly.
Mm-hmm.
If something got posted yesterday, too late. You will never find it. It is a barrage of photos. And I've seen so many remote shoots. Not a single one has impressed me. And that's to say when normally speaking, there are photos in here where some of the photos are and some of the photos are like, wow, this guy's really good. Wow, this girl really knows how to use a camera. But all these remote shoots, I'm just I'm not impressed. So how do you kind of get around
To be brutally honest, you don't. It's probably going to be disappointing at the end of the day. What you need to do, I think, as pessimistic as this sounds, is make it as good as you possibly can and fulfill the client's needs, right? I don't want to be the guy that just fulfills the client's needs. I want to exceed always. I mean, both for just as a professional, but also for my own edification, that I just want to be better and better and better and be the person that just blows the socks off of any client.
And for context, you are extra. You set up an insanely huge server just so I can watch your Blu-rays? Like,
well, yeah, I do. I go like overboard with this, and I should be the person that can just like, with all of the servers and hardware and stuff that I have, I should be the person that just should be able to waltz into remote shooting and just blow it out of the water. But it's such a bad situation. It's so creatively limiting.
Yeah, your job right now is working with a team of people to make this happen.
Yes,
and you're still working on it.
And I'm still struggling. Yeah, it's just not. There are not good solutions for this. So I think at the end of the day, you need to take solace in the fact that you delivered and you met that client's needs. Is it going to just be this amazing creative work? Almost certainly not. If you did, please let me know, because I would love to hear your secrets. But it's probably just going to meet the needs and not really exceed, and that is okay. Like, we are in a pandemic. If you meet the needs of a photo or video assignment remotely, then I mean, that is worth celebrating. And I think that's what you need to take from an experience like this, even if you're kind of a little bit bummed at the results, but look at the results that you did get under incredible duress.
That's
basically
true.
Right? Like, you made this happen despite all of these potential issues. This actually was a thing, and a creative result happened that met the needs of the client. That is worth celebrating.
I was about to be sarcastic and say, today's message of hope, lower your expectations. But no, I think you're absolutely
change your
right.
Expectations.
Is celebrate the fact that you did something, rather than nothing. So there's something to be said for that. Good is the enemy of, or was it? No, perfect is the enemy of good.
Yep.
Or perfect is the enemy of done is another way of saying that.
Oh, that's the real true one.
Yeah. So the fact that you did something rather than nothing should be celebrated. Kind of to end it on this high note here, we'll go with the other favorite comments that I got. So this is Nina. Nina said, photogs bring new poses, ideas, and how to use the space in a new way that the client never thought of. Of course, editing. As for what is enjoyable about it, connecting with someone that you would normally not be able to shoot with due to distance, space, or being able to use props and working through new challenges together, it is a bonding experience. So remote shooting can be fulfilling, but you need to go into it with very different expectations that you might go into any other shoot with. Do you have any kind of final tips for people who still think remote shooting's a great idea and want to give it a try?
I don't have too many final tips other than just respect. Good on you for attempting this. I hope everything goes well for you. My tip is really try to avoid remote shooting. I'm trying to be positive, but also
as a
really...
person whose job is remote shooting.
Yes.
Don't do it.
This is a substantial portion of my job right now, and I'm trying to make it better, but there are no real golden solutions, unfortunately. So try not to do it. If you need to do it, if you have to do it, then really make the best of it. And if you get through it at the end of the day, as we've said, you have done something, you have made a result, you have fulfilled your client's needs, and that, seriously, no sarcasm, is worth celebrating. So good luck to all of you remote shooters out there, and hopefully we can get back to some careful in-person shooting someday soon.
Sometime soon.
Yeah.
Excellent. I think that is a great way to cap off this week's episode. Again, please check out the description. We are going to have a link to a very useful article where it has all of the apps that you need to use if you're shooting either iPhone or Android to be able to do remote shooting in the best way while still having high quality photos rather than just screen capping your FaceTime chat or Zoom call. So thank you guys so much. Please shoot us your photos from your remote shoot. Let us know how it went for you. We would love to hear it, and we'll kind of share some of the fun stories. And we have one more episode coming to you next week. We're going to do a fun little recap of this year's worth of podcasting that we've been doing. It has been a long time coming, and then we'll just kind of go into the holidays with a little holiday spirit, and we will see you all in the new year. One last time, if you have any comments, questions, or ideas for us to start doing come January, email us hello@photo-op.show. Thank you so much, and we will see you next week.
Thanks for listening.
If you have questions or ideas for future episodes, you can email us at hello@photo-op.show.
Watch us on Ben's YouTube channel at NomCreative.
As in Om Nom Nom.
Share this with a friend, and you can listen to Photo Op anywhere podcasts are sold.
Or download it. 'Cause it's free.